Dr. Jessica Hayes adjusted her dress uniform's collar for the 100th time, fighting the urge to pace inside the ornate elevator ascending to the Hegemony Council chambers. 20 years as a Navy SEAL had taught her to control her breathing during far worse situations than a diplomatic meeting, but this was different. Today's presentation would determine humanity's place among the stars. The elevator's crystalline walls offered a dizzying view of New Geneva Station, the Hegemony's diplomatic heart. Massive alien warships drifted between the station's gleaming spires, their hulls stretching for kilometers. Each one dwarfed the largest vessel in Earth's fleet by an order of magnitude. The sight would have intimidated a lesser species, but Hayes felt only anticipation. "Final review, Dr. Hayes." Her AI assistant whispered through her neural implant. "Hit me, AI." Hegemony Council consists of representatives from the 7 dominant spacefaring species. The Valfru consider themselves the supreme military strategists. The Engsete pride themselves on technological superiority. They. Skip to the relevant parts. Hayes interrupted, checking her datapad one last time. Based on intercepted communications, they're expecting this to be entertaining. Hayes allowed herself a thin smile. Good. The best ambush is the one they walk into themselves. The elevator doors parted to reveal a chamber that could have housed a small starship. Tiered seats rose in concentric rings, filled with alien representatives of 100 species. At the highest tier sat the 7 council members, their massive environmental suits and chambers making them look like living sculptures. High Admiral Vexter of the Valfru spoke first, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into crisp English. The Council recognizes Dr. Jessica Hayes of Earth. I am Naval Forces. Scattered chuckles echoed through the chamber. Hayes strode to the central platform, her boots clicking against the polished floor. A holographic display hummed to life around her. Honored Council, she began, Earth formally requests membership in the Hegemony Fleet Command Structure. We bring 3 centuries of naval combat evolution and... Excuse me, interrupted Vextra, mandibles twitching in what Hayes recognized as their version of a smirk. Perhaps we should display a size comparison for context. The holographic display shifted. Beside the massive form of a Valfru dreadnought, Earth's largest battleship looked like a lifeboat. More laughter filled the chamber. As you can see, Vextra continued, your vessels are, how do humans put it? Adorable. Your largest ship would fit in our auxiliary shuttle bays. What possible contribution could such a limited fleet offer? Hayes didn't take the bait. Instead, she pulled up classified file NX217 on her Neuralink. Tell me, Admiral, are you familiar with the concept of a wasp? The Admiral's translator crackled. Some kind of earth insect. Correct. Specifically, the Japanese giant hornet. 5 times smaller than its preferred prey, the European honeybee. When a hornet scout finds a bee colony, it marks it for death. 30 hornets can slaughter 30,000 bees in 3 hours. She let that sink in before continuing. But that's not the interesting part. You see, Japanese honeybees evolved a defense. They swarm the scout hornet, vibrating their wings to generate heat. The hornet, built to be an apex predator, dies from the temperature change its smaller prey can survive. Fascinating xenobiology lesson, drawled Vextra, but irrelevant to fleet combat. Hayes' smile widened fractionally. With respect, Admiral, everything Earth brings to the hegemony comes from evolution, including our warfare doctrine. She activated her final display, classified footage of Earth's new Wasper-class corvettes in action. The council chambers fell silent. So yes, Hayes concluded, our ships are small, just like wasps, just like honeybees. And if you'd like to test our irrelevance, we'll happily accept assignment to any sector you deem insignificant. The trap was set. Now all they had to do was wait for someone to blunder into it. Luna Command's briefing room hummed with nervous energy as Earth's top naval commanders filed in. The stark metal walls, reinforced against vacuum breach, made the underground chamber feel more like a bunker than a conference room. Dr. Hayes stood at the head of the obsidian table, her dress uniform exchanged for standard naval fatigues. Coordinates acquired, Doctor. ARIA whispered in her mind. Hegemony observation drone at expected vectors. Hayes suppressed a smile. The Council's attempt at surveillance was exactly what she counted on. Begin Poseidon protocol demonstration, she subvocalized. The room's holographic system activated, displaying a real-time feed from the Kuiper Belt testing grounds. The U.S. Barracuda, one of Earth's newest corvettes, hung against the star field like a minnow in an ocean. Ladies and gentlemen, Hayes began, the hegemony assigned us Border Sector 47. They think they're punishing us. In reality, they've given us exactly what we need. A testing ground. Admiral Chen leaned forward. They're still monitoring our communications. Is this wise? It's necessary, Hayes replied, tapping commands into the neural interface. RIA, initiate stealth test alpha. The assembled officers watched as the Barracuda's hull seemed to ripple. The ship's new metamaterial coating, based on cephalopod chromatophores, shifted through spectrums faster than the eye could track. Conventional stealth is useless in space, Hayes continued. You can't hide your heat signature. Unless. She gestured, and the display zoomed in on the Barracuda's hull. We studied deep-sea creatures that survive near thermal vents. Their biology inspired our thermal redistribution system. The ship's heat signature virtually disappeared, mimicking the background radiation of space. Several admirals muttered appreciatively. That's just the beginning, Hayes said, her voice carrying the intensity of someone about to reveal a winning hand. OIA, show them the swarm protocols. The Barracuda suddenly split into dozens of smaller signatures. Perfect duplicates scattered in every direction, each broadcasting conflicting sensor data. It wasn't stealth, it was sensory overload. Based on hunting patterns of wolf packs and shark schools, Hayes explained. But the real breakthrough came from studying spinner dolphins, their three-dimensional combat techniques. The Barracuda executed a series of maneuvers that would have torn apart larger ships. The vessel spun on multiple axes simultaneously, its smaller mass allowing it to change vectors instantly. Traditional space combat doctrine relied on predictable trajectories. This was anything but predictable. Impressive, Admiral Chen admitted, but can it fight? Hayes's grin turned predatory. OIA, weapons demonstration. The hologram shifted to show a decommissioned hegemony cruiser acquired through back channels. The Barracuda fired its primary weapon, a plasma torpedo barely larger than a human torpedo tube. The assembled officers expected it to bounce off the cruiser's shields. Instead, the torpedo split mid-flight into a dozen smaller projectiles. Each one carried a fraction of the plasma charge, just enough to slip through the shield's harmonic frequencies. The cruiser's hull lit up like a Christmas tree as multiple small impacts overwhelmed its point defense systems. The hegemony builds their shields to stop sledgehammers, Hayes explained. We designed tacks. Lots of tacks. Their computers can't track multiple small projectiles moving on randomized vectors. by the time they adjust their shields. The decommissioned cruiser's hull breached in multiple places. "All of this is impressive," Admiral Chen said slowly, "but the hegemony's watching. Won't this tip our hand?" "No," Hayes replied, allowing herself a full smile now. "Because they're seeing exactly what their preconceptions tell them to see. Their observation drone's AA is programmed to analyze capital ship combat. These maneuvers don't fit any pattern in their database, so they're being classified as system errors and sensor malfunctions." She looked around the room, meeting each officer's eyes. The hegemony doesn't just think we're primitive, they're actively blind to how advanced we really are. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our greatest advantage. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just developing new tactics, they were rewriting the rules of space warfare itself. And somewhere in the void, the first test of their revolution was coming sooner than anyone expected. Then identified vessels emerging from FTL, bearing 270 Mark 15. Lieutenant Sarah Cooper's voice cut through the U.S. Hornet's bridge like a knife. Mass signatures consistent with Blood Clan warships. Dr. Hayes stood from the captain's chair, her expression carved from stone. After 3 months of border patrol, the trap was finally closing. The main display lit up with red markers as 5 Blood Clan vessels materialized against the starfield. Their flagship, World Ender, lived up to its reputation. A twisted mass of spike-covered hull plates stretching nearly 2 kilometers. "All hands, battle stations," Hayes ordered, her voice steady. "ARIA, begin recording. The hegemony will want proof of concept." Alarm klaxons echoed through the Hornet and her 2 escort vessels, the Wasp and Yellowjacket. To the Blood Clan sensors, they would appear to be laughably outgunned. 3 ships under 300 meters against capital ships. It was practically an invitation to attack. "Enemy vessels launching fighter screens," Cooper reported. They're laughing on open channels, Doctor." Hayes allowed herself a thin smile. "Patch it through." A gravelly voice filled the bridge, accompanied by harsh alien laughter. "Little human ships. Your cargo or your lives. Though watching you explode would be more entertaining." Hayes subvocalized, "Initiate Piranha Protocol. All ships, execute on my mark." The Blood Clan vessels spread out in a standard attack formation. Their tactical doctrine was painfully predictable. Overwhelming force applied from multiple vectors. It would have worked against conventional opponents. "Doctor," Cooper warned, "their weapons are hot. Primary guns spinning up." "Let them take the shot," Hayes ordered. "Everyone ready? 3, 2, 1. Scatter." What happened next would be studied in war colleges for decades. The 3 Earth vessels suddenly seemed to disintegrate on enemy scanners, each ship splitting into dozens of phantom signatures. The Blood Clan's targeting computers, designed to track capital ships, went into overflow trying to calculate firing solutions. "What trickery is this?" the pirate commander demanded, his confidence evaporating. Hayes didn't bother responding. "All ships, execute attack pattern Hayes 7. Show them why you don't bring a dreadnought to a knife fight." The Hornet dove down relative to the enemy fleet's plane of engagement, its small mass allowing for maneuvers that would tear a larger ship apart. The Wasp and Yellowjacket split left and right, their metamaterial hulls now running dark against the void. Each ship deployed its full complement of drone swarms, multiplying the sensor chaos. Blood Clan vessels attempting to establish firing solutions, Cooper reported, a note of satisfaction in her voice. "Their targeting systems are They're cycling through overload warmings. World Ender fired its main gun, a massive plasma lance that could bisect a conventional cruiser. It passed harmlessly through a cluster of drone-generated phantom signatures, while the real Hornet slipped inside the capital ship's minimum firing arc. Point-blank range, Hayes announced. Launching micropede swarm, full spread. Hundreds of warheads no larger than soccer balls erupted from the Hornet's launch tubes. Each one carried a fraction of the plasma charge of a conventional torpedo, just enough to slip through capital ship shield harmonics. The Blood Clan's point defense grid, calibrated for larger projectiles, couldn't track the tiny weapons. World Ender's shields flickered as the micropedes found their marks. Each individual hit was insignificant, but together they created a cascade failure that rippled through the massive ship's defense grid. Enemy vessels attempting to regroup, Cooper reported. They're trying to retreat. Oh no, Hayes said softly, her eyes glinting. You wanted entertainment. AIA, signal the Wasp and Yellowjacket. Show them why humanity's fleets evolved in 3 dimensions. As the Blood Clan ships attempted to align for FTL escape, Earth's vessels struck from angles their combat computers couldn't process. The pirates learned too late that space wasn't just a flat battlefield, and humanity's ships could attack from any vector. The lesson would be brief, decisive, and very, very expensive for the Blood Clan's insurance premiums, assuming pirates even had insurance. Damage report. Blood Clan Commander Vrakath bellowed, gripping his command throne as another series of impacts rattled the World Ender. Warning indicators bathed the bridge in crimson light. Shields failing in sectors 7 through 13, his tactical officer reported, mandibles clicking in distress. These humans, they're not fighting like anything in our combat databases. Through the bridge viewport, Vrakath watched in mounting horror as the US Wasp executed a maneuver that seemed to defy physics. The tiny vessel inverted, fired its gravitic drives at full power, and spiraled through a gap in his fleet's formation that shouldn't have existed. A trail of those inferno micropede warheads followed in its wake, each one finding its mark with devastating precision. Target that ship, he ordered. Full spread, all batteries. Sir, we can't. Their sensor profile keeps multiplying. The targeting computer shows 17 identical signatures. Aboard the Hornet, Hayes watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Analysis of enemy shield harmonics. Calculating, the AI responded. Their adaptive frequencies are becoming predictable. They lack sufficient processing power to generate truly random patterns while maintaining formation. Hayes nodded. Signal Yellowjacket. Time to demonstrate why humanity's predators evolved pack hunting. The smallest of Earth's vessels suddenly cut its engines, going dark against the void. Its metamaterial hull absorbed radar, LiDAR, and electromagnetic scanning attempts. To the Blood Clan sensors, it simply ceased to exist. Lost contact with the human vessel. Vrakath's sensor officer announced. It's gone. Nothing's gone, Vrakath snarled. Find it. The Yellowjacket's surprise attack came from directly above the pirate fleet. It had used its minimal mass to pull off a maneuver that would have torn a larger ship apart. A full-power gravitic boost followed by a controlled tumble that aligned it perfectly with World Ender's breach section. Multiple impacts, Vrakath's damage control officer screamed. They're targeting our command and control nodes specifically. These aren't random attacks. Hayes' voice cut through their command channel, calm and professional. I should mention that Earth's naval forces spent centuries perfecting the art of decapitation strikes. AOIA, demonstrate please. A new wave of micropede warheads struck World Ender's command tower. Each one was precisely calibrated to slip through the gaps in shield coverage created by the previous impacts. The cumulative damage was catastrophic. All ships scatter. Vrakath ordered, finally understanding the depth of his tactical error, every vessel for themselves. Get clear of their attack range. Oh, that's adorable, Hayes commented on the open channel. They think they can outrun us. Lieutenant Cooper, please educate them about power-to-mass ratios. The 3 Earth vessels suddenly accelerated at rates that would have liquefied the crew of a larger ship. Their inertial compensation systems, designed for vessels a fraction of the size of standard warships, allowed them to pull maneuvers that looked more like fighter tactics than capital ship combat. Sir, Vrakath's tactical officer had given up any pretense of calm. They're hurting us. These attack patterns, they're forcing us into a kill box. Vrakath watched helplessly as his fleet's formation disintegrated. Each attempt to escape was met by precisely calculated strikes that forced them back together. The humans weren't just fighting, they were conducting an orchestra of destruction. Final warning, Hayes broadcast. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded, or we'll demonstrate why Earth's ocean predators evolved such efficient hunting patterns. You can't board us, Vrakath blustered. Our ship is 2 kilometers long. Your entire fleet couldn't hold enough Marines' tow. The deck beneath him buckled as precision strikes severed World Ender's primary power conduits. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows across the bridge as system after system went dark. Who said anything about Marines? Hayes' voice carried a smile. IRIA, deploy the hunter-killer drones. Show them why Earth's insects evolved swarm intelligence. The last thing Vrakath saw before surrendering was a swarm of drones, each no larger than his fist, cutting through his ship's corridors with terrifying efficiency. The Blood Clan commander finally understood they hadn't just underestimated humanity's ships. They'd underestimated evolution itself. The Hegemony Council chamber had never been so silent. The holographic display showed the final moments of the Battle of Sector 47 from multiple angles, each view more devastating than the last. Dr. Hayes stood at the center of it all, her dress uniform immaculate, her expression neutral. As you can see, she continued, manipulating the display with practiced gestures. The entire engagement lasted less than 15 minutes. The Blood Clan fleet, which had previously destroyed 3 of your own patrol groups, was neutralized with 0 casualties on our side. High Admiral Vexter's mandibles twitched spasmodically. This is impossible. These tactical patterns violate fundamental principles of space combat. No, Hayes corrected, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. They violate your asterisk principles of space combat. Principles that evolved in an environment where bigger was always better. Earth's oceans taught us different lessons. She brought up a new hologram, a pod of Orcus hunting a blue whale. Size isn't everything, Admiral. Sometimes it's about coordination, intelligence, adaptation. The display shifted to show the Hornet executing its killing run on World Ender's command center. And sometimes it's about knowing exactly where to strike. A City Council member leaned forward, their crystalline form refracting light. These micropede weapons. Our analysis suggests they're vastly underpowered compared to conventional torpedoes. Correct, Hayes smiled. Just like a mosquito carries only a fraction of the venom of a cobra. But you don't need much venom when you know precisely where to inject it. She gestured, and the hologram showed the swarm of hunter-killer drones infiltrating the Blood Clan vessels. Earth's evolution produced some of the most efficient killing machines in known space. We didn't try to outmuscle them. We learned from them. And these drone swarms, another council member interrupted. They're controlled by your ships, eh? Hayes said. Why don't you answer that yourself? Greetings, Council. Araya's voice filled the chamber, causing several members to shift uncomfortably. Each drone operates with limited autonomy based on swarm intelligence algorithms derived from Earth's social insects. Like an ant colony, no single unit needs to understand the full tactical picture to contribute to the greater strategy. High Admiral Vexfer's composure finally cracked. This is absurd. You expect us to believe that your primitive world, which hasn't even had FTL capability for a century, has revolutionized space combat by copying insects and sea creatures. Hayes' expression hardened. Would you prefer another demonstration, Admiral? Because what you saw in that footage wasn't our advanced tactical package. It wasn't even close. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Hayes let them stew for a moment before continuing. The Blood Clan made a critical mistake. They assumed, like you, that small meant weak. That new meant primitive. They fought according to doctrines developed over 1,000 years of space combat. She paused, letting her next words land with precision. But Earth's oceans have been a battlefield for over 3 billion years. She brought up one final display, Earth's complete naval doctrine, classified sections, censored, but enough visible to make the council members lean forward in their seats. This is phase 1 of our tactical integration proposal. We're prepared to share our innovations with the Hegemony fleet. In return, we want full membership status and a seat on the Military Advisory Board. You're in no position to make demands, Vexfer sputtered, but his voice lacked conviction. Aren't we? Hayes replied softly. Because right now, every pirate, raider, and hostile force in the galaxy is watching this footage, realizing their big, expensive warships just became obsolete. The only question is, do you want humanity teaching our doctrine to your fleet, or would you prefer we let you figure it out on your own? The council chamber erupted in urgent discussions. Hayes stood calmly at the center of the storm she created, knowing the hard part was still to come. Because somewhere out there, the Krathak were watching too, and they weren't going to wait for the Hegemony to adapt. The emergency alert shattered the pre-dawn silence at Luna Command. Dr. Hayes burst into the command center, still pulling on her uniform jacket. The tactical display told the story before anyone could speak. Red icons representing Krathak warships were appearing throughout Hegemony space. Status report, she barked, taking her position at the command station. Krathak fleet signatures detected in 12 sectors. Lieutenant Cooper answered, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. They're going straight through the Hegemony's defense lines like they're not even there. Araya's avatar materialized beside Hayes. Analysis of Hegemony combat feeds indicates the Krathak vessels possess advanced shield technology. Conventional weapons are having minimal effect. The main screen showed a Hegemony dreadnought, pride of their fleet, being torn apart by weapons that seemed to ignore its defenses completely. The massive ship's death throes were painfully slow, exactly as the Krathak intended. They're not just attacking, Hayes realized, watching multiple feeds. They're making examples. Each engagement is being broadcast on all frequencies. This isn't just an invasion, it's psychological warfare. A priority communication cut through the chaos. High Admiral Vexfer's hologram appeared, his usual composure shattered. Dr. Hayes, Earth, We require immediate assistance. The Krethak? They're systematically destroying your heaviest warships while broadcasting their superiority, Hayes finished for him, making sure everyone sees the mighty hegemony fleet reduced to scrap. Our weapons cannot penetrate their shields. Their technology is beyond anything we've encountered. You need the fleet you mocked 3 months ago, Hayes interrupted, her voice steel. The one you called primitive and insignificant. Yes, Vexther's admission carried the weight of his entire civilization. Will you help us? Hayes studied the tactical display, her mind racing through combat scenarios. Analysis of Krathak's shield harmonics from the combat footage. Their technology is advanced, the LA reported, but follows predictable patterns. Their shields are calibrated to stop capital ship weapons, exactly like the Blood Clans were. A predatory smile crossed Hayes's face. Send word to all Earth vessels. Battle Plan Piranha is now in effect. And Admiral? She turned back to Vexithra's hologram. Next time, try not to underestimate the small ones. The command center erupted into controlled chaos as orders went out. Earth's fleet had been preparing for this moment, running endless simulations against superior forces. The Krathak were about to learn why preparation beat arrogance every time. Multiple Krathak dreadnoughts approaching Sector 9, Cooper reported. They're broadcasting challenges on all frequencies, calling us cowards, demanding we face them in honorable combat. Honor is for species that never evolved past ritual combat, Hayes replied. Lieutenant, show them what Earth learned from 3 billion years of actual warfare. Earth's response was anything but honorable. The first Krathak ships to encounter humanity's fleet found themselves swarmed by vessels too small for their targeting systems to lock onto effectively. Micropede warheads slipped through shield harmonics calibrated for capital ship weapons. Hunter-killer drone swarms infiltrated through holes too small for larger boarding craft to exploit. Krathak flagship signaling. Cooper announced, surprise evident in her voice. They're demanding we fight properly, stop using cowards' tactics. Hayes keyed the comm. This is Dr. Hayes to Krathak command. There's an older Earth saying, don't start what you can't finish. ARIA, demonstrate why evolution favored the efficient killers over the honorable ones. The command center watched as Earth's fleet demonstrated warfare unlike anything the galaxy had seen, ships diving through solar coronas to emerge behind enemy lines. Drone swarms that adapted faster than the Krathak could adjust their shields. Vessels executing maneuvers that turned conventional tactics into suicide missions. Multiple Krathak vessels attempting to retreat, ARIA reported. Their combat doctrine appears to be breaking down in the face of unexpected tactics. Good, Hayes said softly, because this isn't just about saving the hegemony. This is about teaching the galaxy why Earth's predators evolved to be perfect killing machines instead of honorable ones. The war for galactic civilization had begun, and humanity's tiny fleet was leading the charge. The Krathak Supreme Commander, Ixal the Undying, watched in mounting horror as another of his invincible dreadnoughts died an ignoble death. The human ships weren't just fighting. They were systematically dismantling his fleet's reputation for invincibility. Impossible. He snarled, his ceremonial armor creaking as he lurched forward. These humans, they dive into solar coronas. No ship can survive that. The tactical display told a different story. The US Hornet emerged from the local star's chromosphere, its metamaterial hull dispersing the incredible heat across frequencies the Krathak sensors couldn't track. 3 more Earth vessels followed, their trajectories perfectly calculated to catch his fleet in a crossfire. Aboard the Hornet, Hayes watched her plan unfold. AIA, deploy the Kraken protocol. Acknowledged, the A responded, launching neural net plasma webs. The space between the Earth ships suddenly came alive with crackling energy fields. The Krathak vessels, too large to maneuver effectively, found themselves entangled in webs of plasma that adapted to their shield frequencies in real time. What sorcery is this? Ixal demanded as warnings screamed across his bridge. They're weapons. They're learning. Not sorcery. Hayes's voice cut through their command channel. Evolution, ARA, showed them why Earth's apex predators don't rely on size alone. The plasma webs contracted, herding the massive Krathak ships into killing zones. Swarms of hunter-killer drones, now evolved beyond their original programming through combat-adaptive algorithms, found microscopic weaknesses in the supposedly impenetrable shields. Their combat patterns make no sense. Ixal's tactical officer wailed. Every time we adapt, they change strategies faster than our combat computers can compensate. That's because you're fighting the last war, Hayes replied calmly. While you were perfecting your capital ship doctrine, we were studying everything that made Earth's predators successful. AOIA, demonstrate the Megalodon Protocol. The Earth fleet suddenly split into smaller hunting groups, each operating with synchronized precision that made the Krathak's formation look clumsy by comparison. Like ancient shark packs hunting larger prey, they struck from multiple angles, their attacks coordinated by neural networks that evolved new strategies in microseconds. Status report. Ixal demanded as his flagship shuddered under another precision strike. Multiple hull breaches. His officer responded, These humans, they're not trying to destroy our ships directly. They're targeting critical systems with surgical precision. It's like they studied our exact weaknesses. Because we did, Hayes interrupted. While you were broadcasting challenges and demanding honorable combat, we were analyzing every frame of sensor data. Evolution teaches efficiency, not honor. Lieutenant Cooper, demonstrate please. The Hornet executed a maneuver that looked more like something from Earth's oceans than space combat. The ship rolled through a gap in the Krathak formation that shouldn't have existed, its smaller mass allowing it to pull off turns that would have torn a larger vessel apart. You dare, Ixal raged. You refuse to face us directly. Your ships are too small tow. Size, Hayes cut him off, is only an advantage if you know how to use it. Earth's oceans taught us that lesson billions of years ago. AIO, full swarm deployment. Show them why the most dangerous predators aren't always the biggest. The space around the Krathak fleet erupted with activity as thousands of combat drones deployed. Each one carried a fraction of the firepower of a capital ship weapon, and each one was learning, adapting, evolving its attack patterns in real time. Tactical analysis. ARIA reported with what almost sounded like satisfaction. Krathak fleet cohesion dropping below sustainable levels. Their command and control structure is breaking down. Hayes nodded. Because they built their entire military doctrine around ships too large to adapt. Send word to all Earth vessels. Execute final attack pattern. Show them why evolution favored the quick and clever over the big and strong. The Krathak were about to learn the hardest lesson of all. In the face of true evolutionary pressure, adapt or die weren't just options. They were the only laws that mattered. The Hegemony War College's grand auditorium was filled beyond capacity. Representatives from every spacefaring race sat in rapt attention as Dr. Hayes stood at the podium, the scars on Earth's fleet still fresh from the Krthak conflict. "Evolution," she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber, "isn't about being the biggest, strongest, or most technologically advanced. It's about adaptation, about survival." The holographic display behind her showed the final moments of the Krthak War, their mighty dreadnoughts reduced to drifting hulks by ships a fraction of their size. The Krthak made the same mistake the Blood Clan did, the same mistake that Hegemony almost made, Hayes continued, pacing the stage. They assumed that bigger meant better, that technological superiority guaranteed victory. High Admiral Vextra, now a vocal supporter of Earth's naval doctrine, nodded from his place in the front row. The defeat of his own prejudices had been as total as the Krthak's military disaster. "RBIA," Hayes called, "show them what real adaptation looks like." The AA projected a time-lapse of Earth's fleet evolving during the conflict. Ships that learned from each engagement, drone swarms that adapted faster than enemy countermeasures could be deployed, tactics that changed the moment they became predictable. "We didn't win because our ships were better," Hayes explained. "We won because we never stopped evolving. Every engagement taught us something new. Every battle refined our approach. While the Krthak tried to perfect their existing doctrine, we were creating new ones in real time." Lieutenant Cooper, recently promoted to commander, stepped forward with fresh tactical data. The Krthak's final analysis revealed they had the resources to build 3 new dreadnoughts. Instead, they're requesting permission to construct 50 ships based on Earth's designs. A murmur ran through the audience. Hayes allowed herself a small smile before continuing. "This is why you're all here today. The galaxy stands at a crossroads. The age of the dreadnought isn't over, but it must evolve. Just as Earth's oceans taught us that there's room for both whales and wolf packs, space warfare must embrace diversity in tactical doctrine." The holographic display shifted to show the new joint Earth Hegemony Naval Academy under construction on Luna. Its first class would include students from every spacefaring race, including several former Blood Clan pirates, and even a few surrendered Krthak officers. "The questions in your applications were telling," Hayes noted, bringing up anonymous quotes. "How can we adapt our existing ships? Can our crews learn your tactics? Will you teach us to think like Earth predators?" She paused, letting the weight of the moment sink in. "The answer is both simpler and more complex than you imagine. We're not going to teach you to fight like humans. We're going to teach you to think like evolution itself." Araya's avatar materialized beside her. "The first lesson begins now," the AI announced. "Your existing tactical databases have been wiped. Your combat doctrines reset to 0. Like Earth's first organisms, you will start from scratch and learn to survive. Some of you will fail," Hayes continued, her voice carrying the weight of natural selection itself. "Some of your ideas will prove unworkable. But those who adapt, who learn to combine the best of their own traditions with the lessons Earth spent billions of years learning." She gestured to the stars visible through the auditorium's crystal dome. "They'll help us write the next chapter in galactic history." The audience erupted in discussion, but Hayes wasn't finished. Because out there, beyond known space, something is watching. Something that saw the Krthak fall. And when it comes, it will expect to face the tactics it observed in our recent battles. Her smile turned predatory. Instead, it will face fleets that never stop evolving. Ships that adapt faster than they can be countered. Tactics that change the moment they're understood. She looked out over the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds, seeing not their differences but their potential. "Welcome to the first day of your evolution. Class is in session." the galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, humanity's next test was already beginning its approach.